Kartik, we've seen multiple measures being taken by the government. You're talking about verification of consent given by a digital portal where you can go and give a consent for you to get calls from a particular place or not. The onus is being given on the consumer, the person, the people. They can do it. In the latest, in that series of measures being taken by the government to block spam calls, you have now SIM card dealer verification. Every person, every shop that's selling SIM cards has to be government verified. And also they can't be giving out bulk connections, SIM cards in bulk, a huge measure in terms of checking fraud and fraudulent calls. This at a time when they've actually blocked 66,000 numbers, WhatsApp numbers, 66,000 numbers have been blocked by the government because they're spam, and that includes 17,000 mobile handsets as well.
That's right.
So big moves to make India spam free.
You know, I don't want to sound like a pessimist, which I usually am, unfortunately. But, you know, my fear is that there's great intentions, great practices, great action points often falter at execution. And that continues to be my fear. But let's hope this fear does not really lead to any sort of fruition, and there is something positive that comes out of the real crackdown that the government is trying hard to do, not just on pesky calls, but indeed on fraudulent activities conducted by scamsters, and not just spamsters, by scamsters literally, using connections that they got on a fake KYC, changing numbers as frequently as they possibly can, and using the same handsets by inserting multiple SIMs, multiple numbers, and using always a different number to call the same person. So eventually, I think it should all lead to, hopefully, some real major crackdown on this menace of spam calls as well as scam calls. But let's look at all the news that has come in, all the data, all the information that has come in, especially from, no one less than the IT Minister, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav himself yesterday. And let's pull up those graphics here, and let me just take you through some of them. Bulk sales of SIM cards, like you mentioned, have been barred.
Yeah.
Mandatory registration of agents, of point of sale salespeople, of distributors of SIM cards, pretty much the works. So there is mandatory registration, and this registration has to happen with the telcos. It cannot be one little kirana store buying bulk SIM cards from somewhere, selling it, with no trace. He might have his own KYC and his own PAN, Aadhaar, etc., but he has to be specifically registered with the telcos. Now, this registration also entails police verification. You can't just do a simple Aadhaar-based, PAN card-based verification. It has to actually be police verified. So every distributor out there has got to have a clear-cut formal police verification. Now, these agents and the telcos themselves have been given 12 months to comply with this. So this process has to initiate immediately, kickstart immediately, 12 months until this registration actually gets completed. Now, let's move on and let's look at some other data that has emerged. Now, what are the new KYC rules? Very important. Up until now, a corporation would, any large company, 100, 200 employees, would have a bulk deal with a telco, take SIM cards from them, distribute them for official purposes to their employees. Now, every end user of every single number, even if it's a corporate connection, has to be KYC approved. Add to that, physical verification of office premises, physical verification of every address given by a corporation to buy these bulk numbers from a telco directly needs to be done. So, you can't just give any random address. There is going to be a physical verification of the premises that you operate from. And in addition to the regular KYC, which is Aadhaar based, there is going to be facial recognition as well when it comes to doing this KYC. Very importantly, let's look at actually exactly what the Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said. Before that, this is an important point again, that an individual can buy up to 9 numbers using the same KYC. So this is what the minister said. He said earlier people used to buy SIM cards in bulk. However, it's been decided to end that provision. Instead, we'll bring a proper business connection provision, which he says will help in stopping fraudulent calls. Right? An important step, important measure coming in a very, very timely manner. Very quickly, if we can just look at the crackdown that has happened using, let's say, the Sanchar Sathi, which was the initiative the government launched in the month of May. Some great progress there. You mentioned a few numbers. 6.6 million illegal connections have been detected using Sanchar Sathi, which actually deploys AI, artificial intelligence, to understand whether a number being used and the number of calls being made and the diversity to which those calls are being made. Does it look like a human? Does it look like a real caller? Does it look like perhaps, somebody who's engaging in spam or scam calls? 5.2 million of that 6.6 connections have actually been discontinued. They've been disconnected. So the government has actually gotten rid of 5.2 million scamsters so far, at least numbers used by scamsters. 67,000 sellers of bulk SIM cards have been blocked. 17,000 handsets, you mentioned this, are no longer in existence. They've been blocked. And here comes the big one, the WhatsApp number. 66,000 WhatsApp accounts have also been blocked, and 800,000 accounts used by fraudsters by way of UPI or payment wallets have also been frozen. So yes, finally there seems to be some massive crackdown. At least the numbers are shoring up well this time around, despite me being a pessimist.
Yeah, numbers are showing up well. We have Mr. Sandeep Bhargava, former EVP Vodafone Idea Limited and currently founder and CEO of Leap Edtech, joining us. Sir, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on Business Plus. Those numbers tell me two things. One is that 800,000 is the ones that have been found out. How many out there are there that have yet to be found out already? So my point here, my question to you is that do you think enough is being done? What is your take on the measures to block the bulk sale of SIM cards and also make sure every single SIM card seller in this country is verified?
I think this is a great step taken by the government. And as you rightly pointed out, this is the second set of reforms which have come in place after the May ones. And the numbers are speaking for themselves. The kind of accounts blocked, the connections disconnected, the point of sale people, the complaints which have been handled, almost 1.8 million subscriber complaints have been handled, lost phones have been recovered back. So you see, there has been action and there has been a proof that yes, these measures have been very, very strong. Now, coming back to the today's reforms which have been announced by the Honorable Minister, I think we are going to get much more spam-free and scam-free, as you rightly pointed out, Kartik, to move on with the operators. So operators may have a challenge, but definitely the kind of business, illegal business happens troubling the citizens of the country, that needs to be plugged as well. So it's not only the profits or the services by the operators, but they need to ensure that every citizen in this country is not defrauded of their hard-earned monies, basically.
Right, but Kartik here gave us all those numbers and said that despite the fact that so much has been found out, he doesn't feel that the measures taken so far are enough really in terms of the larger problem at hand, in the sense that you have these daggers in the way to stop spam calls from reaching you, but you and I both know we're far away from not getting those pesky calls.
Sandeep, my point really being that despite these guardrails being set up, we as decision makers, policy makers, telco operators have always been a few steps behind the fraudsters, the scamsters.
Yeah.
They've found a crack well before we found an antidote to that scam. What is preventing them to come up with newer, more unique, more sort of innovative, creative ways of bypassing the system? And KYC, etc., we know how difficult or how easy it is to get through those guardrails.
So just a moment, you pause and see that recently we have been, the Parliament has passed the DPDP Act. So that will also act as a deterrent, and with high penalties in place, will stop these and help them in the calls which are being made or the frauds are being done. Because now you have a circumference of measures being taken by the government. They are circular in nature. You have these verification of these people. You have the DPDP Act coming in place. You have the measures of May which are in place. So all these will combine together, will have a major effect. And on top of it, I think the very important aspect has to be to educate the individuals of not letting the numbers let loose the way they just keep on handing over wherever they go. So it is upon individuals as such to take certain measures and ensure that we don't give our numbers left and right to all across the places. So we are also an important element, and moreover, the operators have to carry out certain educational programs, or the associations also have to bring in where you are not sharing your numbers so easily. But so Sandeep, from a technology perspective, yeah, please.
Sandeep, I have a fundamental challenge with the whole approach taken by the government. which seems to be directed specifically at the sellers, or if I can say the resellers of the numbers. Why is there not still enough accountability resting with the telcos themselves? Because at the end of the day, they need to be custodians of the data, and not just the data that they get, but also the data and the KYC and the whole identification of the end user of the numbers issued by them. I mean, you can stop a seller from selling in bulk. You can also have the seller debarred. You can have the seller blacklisted for 3 years, penal action up to 10 lakh rupees, all that on the seller. Why is there not enough being done right at the level of the telco? Why can't the telcos themselves be challenged and penalized for any spam call, scam call coming using a number issued by them?
So just a moment now, if you see the regulations, there is an agreement between the seller and the telco. So do you think that if there is a seller creating a problem, the telco will get scot-free? So the agreement is between the two, and if there is anything wrong being done by the seller, ultimately it falls back to the telco because the agreement is with them.
Agreement is with the telco, but the agreement, from my reading, my understanding suggests that the seller may be barred for a period of 3 years, may be blacklisted by the telco. What happens to the telco?
So if suppose you have 100 or 100,000 people getting affected from a particular telco, ultimately the responsibility or the point will be towards the telco only, no? So sellers is the mindset which they create all these fundamentals to make fast money, and then they want to earn fast. But ultimately it's a loophole in the telcos operations as well. They need to be controlled. So directly, indirectly, it will fall back to them. They cannot go scot-free.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's directly and not very indirectly, because there has to be some sizable action taken on telcos, I feel. Through the sellers being delisted, blacklisted, all of that, great. But I think there has to be something very concrete coming out against telcos themselves as well.
So we have not seen the fine print of the agreement. I am sure you will find something out there. So let's wait for the agreement also to come in, that what lies, because agreement is between two parties and it cannot be one-sided only with the seller. So I'm sure they will be binding both of the entities when the agreement is to be signed. Let's see the language of the agreement.
As you gentlemen are discussing the responsibility that needs to lie with telecom companies, all I can think of is with what the telecom industry is going through. Right now the focus is probably on profitability and making sure there's no tax burden. Then figuring out whether their systems are good enough to avoid spam calls.
And for some telcos, it's pure play survival. Look at Vodafone, for example.
I was just about to say
survival, profitability, ARPU, all of that can come later. Let's just breathe oxygen.
Yeah. So I mean, in this stage, one last question before I let you go, Mr. Bhargava. Are telecom companies well placed to deal with to take up responsibility of cleaning up the spam call menace in the first place?
So it's a primary business. So don't think that they are there to make all these numbers just to add to their profits. They have other responsibility as well. So I'm sure they have to have a cleanup operation. When it comes to a mandate, they need to follow it. They can't just be away from that. Okay. So they have to come across and see the past also. There are many security policies adopted in 2010 and 12. And see, the network has really become devoid of those. We are much better off what it used to be.
Right.
So slowly, every step what an operator takes, these scamsters and the people who create spam calls go much ahead of it. So definitely there has to be a balance. And I'm sure with these steps, that balance will be struck.
Right. We will hope for a better future at this stage, and we'll wait for the fine print on all the policies that the government is making. But for now, Mr. Sandeep Bhargava, former EVP, Vodafone Idea Limited, and currently founder and CEO of Leap Edtech. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here, sir, and be part of our Spam-Free India campaign here on News9
Look forward.
Live.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.